What's up, guys? How's it going? Lacey and Jennifer here with the Internal Astronaut, and today we are going to talk all about gate 42. And we have been in big times. You know, Jupiter is in 42, the sun has been in 42 all week. And so let's dive into this gate. I do want to mention Jennifer is a generator. My husband's also a generator. So up front, I watch this energy. I live with this energy in my life. But I absolutely understand that I cannot understand the sacral center. Maybe I'll just talk a little bit about the personal versus collective, the death, the birth, the cyclical experience, right? The abstract experience of gaining wisdom and meaning as you move through experience after experience, as you're building onto that wisdom. And so much of this personal, to me, maybe has a lot to do with death, rebirth themes, letting go of a mental construct, letting go of an expectation, letting go of something that was never really true. And by the end, you kind of get to see, you know, the thing that maybe wasn't really true, and that next new thing, that diversity, that change, that difference that you can dive into. And on this collective level, you know, I think we're seeing this with the shift. So maybe we're sitting down some of these cross of planning themes. We are seeing different endings in different industries. We're seeing endings in the way we behave and interact. And so as we set these themes down, we are preparing ourselves to pick up the new themes for the next stage of the Sleeping Phoenix. And so how do you feel, Jennifer? And I know you have this gate.
It is my design south node. And so it's handing people their endings. I don't want to be technical here, I guess, because this is my experience. And so everybody's experience is going to be different. I don't hold your answers. So yes, there's a definition of what gate 42 in human design is, but this is lived through my experience with gate 42. And I think that's the way we need to look at things, because again, we are internal astronauts, right? We are all our own universe. This is through our own experiences and our own witnessing of this energy. It's the key to our relationship with death. It is part of the ring of life and death. And so it is the cycle. And in my mind, I've always thought about it as a more personal thing. So the cycle of our life, or the people who are in our life. And after talking today, now you look at a collective level. As we're moving through the shift, and as we're getting closer to the shift, right, we are ending those cycles. Well, 4253, that channel is channel of cycles, right? And so when we think about that on a collective level, it is the ending of this cross into the new cross. And it can be looked at in a variety of ways, because I think it is valuable to look at it as a personal level thing. And if you do possess this, like I'm the middleman, I have the 0.4, I am the person who connects the resources, I'm the foundation of the transpersonal. We're looking at leaving the cross of planning and moving into a new cycle of life, then to death, right? So it is the leaving of this old cross of planning, and that is why we're seeing things come to an ending, or to a place that there is an ending, that there can be a rebirth. So the example I continue to use is the mental health system, because that is what has affected me most in my life. And the way I see it now is that construct is falling apart, because everybody's talking about trauma. Our society is traumatized as a whole. And before, we used to think that trauma was a select few people, but that was because the mental health system wanted to put labels on everything. You have this, you have that, you have this and this and this, you know, and create the labels. Well, now what they're looking at is trauma is trauma is trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter The trauma then becomes adaptations. How did we adapt to survive? So the adaptations then that we have formed in order to survive is what needs to be healed. So that is the ending. And then the birth then becomes the fact that we don't need the labels. We can heal the thing, all the things without the labels, without the construct, without the cross of planning. But we are still pulling the resources from the cross of planning that we have learned through our experiences into the present, which will be, when we get there, into the cross of the sleeping phoenix, to be able to know as a third line, let's say, what worked for us, what didn't work for us collectively, what things were, beneficial to us as a collective, that we can pull from that existing foundation of resources, because this gate is about the increase of resources, right, as well. So what resources were effective to serve people, but then also not having everyone give away their authority to someone else. So we're seeing that portion of it break down as well, because there is no one, let's say in personal development, who holds our answers, or a therapist that holds the answer to how to heal the adaptations we have created for our needs to survive. So that's the way that I today have finally put the pieces together, as a different way to look at 42. I've always seen it just for me as a place where people get annoyed with me because I always am trying to put the resources together. Oh, I know this person and this would be a great person to reach out to, because that's my gift. That is the 42-4. The line literally is about being the middleman and connecting the dots. And so I don't know what you think about everything that I just spewed out, Lacey, and maybe you could pick a few things that we could discuss moving forward. What do you think?
I think that was so good. I just love how you really highlighted the way that we can see this as a collective. Like the mental health example is so, so good. And I want to bring one in. Growing up, I was a gymnast, and I did that for a long time, for a lot of hours, and I actually had to stop because I fractured my spine. And on the way there, I had just got invited to a big regional competition, and my leotard's on the way, and we're practicing and getting ready. And I'm openly talking about the pain. I'm like, there's something wrong and I need to have this looked at, and I cannot do these things. And we do not hear pain. We ignore it. We brush it under the rug. We gaslight people, and we refuse to believe their experience. And so finally we realized that I had fractured my spine after we went to the hospital and did the whole song and dance. And so seeing Simone Biles not too long ago at the Olympic Games step up and be like, I will not, because mental health. Amazing, because this is us ending these themes. And so we've already talked about how maybe we're looking at trauma as adaptations, right? These are all of the awesome adaptations that we picked up to be cross of planning masters, to build global society, to do all the things. And now we're putting all that down. And it comes in the form of, breakthroughs, making new meaning, putting down that expectation, seeing that situation differently, that person, right? It's almost like it becomes so much more impersonal, and you're breaking out of these old adaptations so that we can kind of be empty and ready to take on the new adaptations for the next cycle. And so I love this. And I think that as we look around, we can see this in so many places, and maybe see the endings that are running towards us, the things that we haven't been able to resolve, and the things that just aren't making any sense. And everybody's just in so much uncertainty. And I love to place reasons for that on this. And it feels so good to me. And one other thing I wanted to add in, because this is kind of a totally new thing, is to just talk about the way that this is a format energy, because I feel like we are so heavily impacted by this, like on a level that we can't really grasp. And with the planet energy that's been there, we have the possibility of letting go of things that we have been carrying on us since childhood. You know, if you want to go even further than that, like maybe you're putting down patterns that were within the genetics, you know, maybe you're putting down patterns that you've been conditioned to believe in lives before this time. You know, it's like we are putting so much density down just in order to start that next place. And so with it being that format, I think that it can be so overwhelming, and the way that it can stop your movement. So for example, I have gate 52. It's my only format. So my entire life, I was very comfortable in my forever life cycle, you know, like the thing that like I will focus on people from birth until death and gain mastery, because that's the collective logic. It's not about beginning, middles, and ends. So marrying my husband and bringing a new format into my life, you know, to have my rosy lifetime adventure broken down into these little abstract things where I have to like reevaluate the way I see, and I have to, you know, have these new experiences that maybe don't have much to do with me, you know, and to learn my authority and to learn my energy so that I'm not being moved around by this format channel. This is one of those places that can result in depressive energy, you know, stopping you from moving. You're confused, you know, and you can literally get stuck there. So you can, maybe you make up an idea about yourself or about why you're there, or maybe you're resisting and fighting, and getting stuck there can feel so limiting and so out of your control. You know, you can do all of the things to get out, but I think that with this energy, you know, you don't get to get out until you've seen the thing. You don't get to start next cycle until you get it. And really, even if you do somehow start next cycle, if you haven't grasped what needs to be grasped, it will repeat. It will even come into your new cycle and infiltrate you there in order to show you something that you need to see.
And there's a lot of pressure from that sacral gate. If you don't have the 53 on the other side of this can lead to some seriously deep frustration. And so it's like you're just stuck. Where's that energy going to go? And so having that 42 for me, and then there's nothing on the other side and my root is undefined. So it can be a place that you're extremely frustrated. And I think that's where I always feel like, oh, I'm annoying the crap out of people with this resource thing, because that's the energy it feels like, you know? And so it also, to me, because it is sacral, it always reminds me of, okay, are we doing this in the correct timing? Are we bringing forth the resources for me, speaking from mine experience? Am I bringing forth the resources in the correct timing where people are wanting to hear it? Because that sacral always has that timing thing to it. It just makes me believe that maybe when people are feeling like, how do you possibly have all these resources? Is like, I'm not sharing it when they're ready to hear it.
Yeah.
And so there's that. And then I think we need to define a little bit about a format channel or a format gate, because I think that maybe some don't know what that is, but formats are very powerful. So they can literally take over your entire design and make that your theme. You know, and that's the kind of the way I see it, that sacral just has a lot of power there.
The formats, they just really blow my mind for the exact reason that you said. They can take over the whole design. So it's like, what does that even mean? And to me, when I watch a new format come into someone's life, you know, the way that they see and the way that they experience changes. So it's like me, for example, if I'm very used to entering an experience and staying at that experience at that job, you know, through high school and all the way through college. And I'm just used to my life functioning in this very long format where there's not really beginnings, middles, and ends. You know, it's like they're still there, but that's not like the point, and that's not where I get the meaning. You know, my meaning is being placed in skill and in mastery. So it's like when a new format comes into my life, I can start to see things differently. All of a sudden, I'm like seeing new thing. You know, I'm being invited into new thing that has nothing to do with my whole mastery trip. And maybe inside myself, I'm like, mastery was never that important. You know, you're like literally giving up your design and the way that life shows itself to you, the way that the new things come, the way that the new relationships start, and you're beginning to experience them in a new way. And you're like, this isn't the way, like, this isn't the way that it's always been. And so when I say like overwhelmingly takes over your design, I really do. I think it's almost like putting on a pair of like colored lens glasses, putting those lenses on and seeing everything in a totally different color. I think it can distort people to that degree.
But I think that's why, like, it would be difficult for somebody with a 42 to come into your life, because it is cycles. It is seeing the beginnings and middles and endings of all things.
Yeah.
And I had a curious thought there for a second, like, what if those people who have this gate can accept death more than the other? Or, you know, but I mean, I have no way to prove that, but I just wonder if there's a conditioning factor to that, because they're able to see the life cycle of things, or maybe it's people. Or so are you more accepting of the cycle of life, or all the different cycles within the collective? Hard to say, but I think there may be something there,
Yeah,
you know, to look at.
I definitely think so. Well, and the way I kind of see it, you know, all of the main people in my life with 42 have experienced death in pretty wild ways, you know, like your parents. And if you want to go into that, you can. And it's like my husband losing one of his really great friends in high school, and him having already dealt with that theme by the time we met in our early 20s. And so if we're here living life with the energy of endings, I would think, you know, in my own understanding, that you are going to automatically be receiving those experiences because you are that, you know, so like you're built with that. So you're made to deal with that type of experience as that being like your function. And so it's interesting, right? Because that 42.4, that's your south node on the design side. Some people talk about that being like the midwife gate, because they are the middleman and they are delivering the child. And that seems so much about beginnings, because it is, but at the same time, you are taking that child and you are ending its time in the womb. You are bringing it into a totally new world that it has no awareness even exists, you know, and it's beginning this whole new life. And so I feel like it can really feel like that for people too. You know when the ending has happened, because you know, and you've experienced some life altering change, breakthrough, something. And so it's not really something we can even guess about, and it's not something we can control or decide that I'm going to break through around this and in this. It's like, no, this thing is absolutely in control.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And, you know, I was a witness to both my parents' deaths, you know, like I was lucky like that, you know, being able to sit with my mother as she took her last breath. And actually, I was only in the same home as my father as he took his last breath. And so I just wonder if that was meant to be too. Like, was I there to help usher that? And not saying that I'm some, you know, something special, whatever, but just to say like that maybe needs to be part of my experience because it is who I am. So maybe that's why I have experienced those things, because then I am able to see the beginnings and the ends, more definitively, or be able to help walk people through their endings to their new beginnings. Because I think a lot of times we struggle with those changes, right? And so when somebody hands you an ending, it's like, well, now what? Where the hell do I go? It's really unsettling. It's really like destabilizing. So somebody who's, got that fourth line being a foundational line, does that have something to do with it? Do those, 42.1 and 42.4 hold that space? Of course, I'm in my own head talking this through about, the things that I have experienced with cycles, and just seeing now what we are witnessing with the end, this cycle coming to an end of the cross of planning, like those things ending and then giving us the opportunity to usher in this new start, but being able to understand the experiences from the cross of planning that will help us access the new beginning in the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And so maybe that's the point, or the 0.1 and 0.4, feeling that pressure too, to be there for the transition.
The one, if we are at our place of ending, when you lose your foundation, it's so hard. It's so hard. And so for me, it really felt like I lost my whole foundation, and I am a 1/3. For me, when I had my big crisis-y experience and I shattered my mind, it was like I had to learn how to talk. I had to learn how to live. Like, I feel like I couldn't make eye contact with people for a while. I didn't want to leave my house, and it was a very like alone process of just beginning to form that next foundation. And then you've got the 4, and they are out here externalizing these skills and doing these things and bringing these endings and taking these experiences with people. And I think the thing that is so hard for us right now is that we don't understand we're going through this shift. And part of moving into the sleeping phoenix, I mean, that theme in itself is death and rebirth. The sleeping phoenix, like the mythology of it.
Burning and rising from the ash.
I don't think we've ever had to grasp, not ever. So maybe for the past 500, 600 years, I don't think death has been such a huge theme that we're all here to like look at and really go into and understand. And what is so hard for us right now is that I think life is really wanting us to go into the death theme. It's really wanting us to go into it all the way. So all the way from the fact that like we all die, clear to the place where it's like, you have to rest. It's like, we don't know how to just die and be still and live in a way that's healthy for us. We're out there killing ourselves and doing all these crazy activities, and we're full of pressure, and we're trying to be everybody's authority. And so it's just such a messy place. How do you externalize this ending when nothing looks like it makes sense right now? And how, like, even if some people feel the ending, what words are they going to put on top of their feeling? It's just such a strange thing that we can't share it logically, that it has to come one by one through these cyclical experiences.
Well, you said something before about we've literally gotten ourselves to the point and worked ourselves to the point that there is no time for anything. And that's why we're seeing all this AI stuff, because there is no place more for us to go to work more, because there's literally no more time. And so I wonder if that's how we can see the ending. Like, the physical bodies cannot be pushed farther, or it will be death.
Right.
And so it has to end. That cycle has to end of being pushed to the point of death in order for us to be reborn, to be, start the cycle anew so that we find the balance. So we don't have to give away ourselves and our authority. We can be our own authority. We can be our own person. We can say, I can't work that much. This is what I can do. And so it's no longer people saying, give your life to me.
Right.
And it's taking possession of our lives back, because there is no more. There is no way to be pushed any farther in that direction. It's a time of a calling back. So if we look at it, like the cross of the sleeping phoenix, and as the phoenix dies and burns to the ground and rises from the ashes, that's what that construct is like people finally understanding, I literally can't give anymore.
Right.
My mental health, my physical health, everything is riding on this because I cannot give anymore. So it is a point of, we have pushed to the limit so far that there's nowhere else we can go. And so it's forcing the death of the cycle in order for the new cycle. Like, you're right. We literally, you cannot fit more work into the work periods we have.
Mm-mm.
And when people are already, they work their time at work and then they're home trying to go to their children's activities and do all the things and wash all the laundry and clean the house and, all of these things that we are supposed to do. It's like, there is no more time in a day because we're already not getting the sleep that our physical body needs for the brain to, be able to fully function the next day. And so we look at all these diseases and things that are created because we have pushed the physical body beyond. So it is that, that death cycle. It has to end because there's nowhere else it can go.
The physical body's part is so extreme. We can't understand that we are capable of like pushing ourselves until death and not realizing that we're doing that. Like, this happens all the time, and people do not realize that they have done that to themselves. And so it's just something to be aware of, as we run towards these breakthroughs. And I think it's all been perfect. I can't see it as anything but perfect. And when I'm looking at going from collective to individual as an ending, this is so hard because we're at this place in time now where we have strapped up every second of every day between work and social activities and, holidays and rituals and all of these things. Like, we are so strapped for time. And as the themes become individual, it's hard because we've always placed all of our value in materialism and family collective ritual, getting together, doing that Christmas ritual, doing that Thanksgiving ritual, all my kids going to college and that being a ritual. Like, we've put so much of ourselves into these things. And as we move into individual themes, they're not going to look the same. They might not last at all. And so many of us can take that so personally, and that can feel so hard as we watch our families kind of move away from each other and we're like, what is going on? And so much of this is that flip from collective to individual. And the way it looks to me like the mind changes, it's like in cross-of planning, you're looking at someone and you think you know everything about them. And you think you have all the advice to give them and all the answers. And that's what you do. That's the value that you give so that you can make money. And going into the sleeping phoenix, that's not going to be possible. We made money by pretending like we had people's answers. And going where we're going, everyone's going to know that not only does my mind not have their answer, their mind doesn't have their answer. AI and the internet are quickly going to show that to people as we keep running in this direction. And so it's like, if that's how we've made money this whole time, what does that look like as we try to make money without acting like we know? How do we communicate when where we were, we thought we knew everything about them. So all of our communication was about them. Oh, well, it looks like you're doing this and you think this, and where we're going, it's like, well, the way I experienced that, I felt like this when you did this, and it's okay if there's not this blame, there's not this shame. I have the ability to share my feelings and my thoughts because I'm not dissociated and floating above my body, and it's like, to get to that place is an entire remapping and reframing, or at least, it was for me.
We've given people the illusion that we hold all their answers. And so what does it look like when somebody regains the ability to connect to their inner voice, their strategy and authority? What could that look like? I also think we need to take a look at how in 42 projectors are affected, or any non-sacral, right?
Yeah.
Because as you were talking about that, I kept thinking about all of the projectors who are in adrenal fatigue. I mean, even generators can get this, right? So like, imagine what it is for a non-sacral. They literally don't have the energy and they're using somebody else's. And so they literally will push themselves to death because they don't understand when to stop, when to shut off. What does it look like collectively when we can start to acknowledge non-sacrals in our society and the roles that non-sacrals are playing in the new cross, right? They are here to guide the people. So when are we going to start to recognize them instead of, everything about life being about the manifestor or the generator? Because generators have been told they're manifestors their entire life. Oh, the harder you work, the more money you're going to make. I call BS.
Right.
What is that going to look like for a projector or for a non-sacral? They will play such a huge role moving forward. And I just wonder what that could possibly look like for them when it's finally acknowledged they're not the worker bee. They're not meant for those things. That is the role of the generator. And
Right.
how do we honor those projectors in a way they can no longer be looked at as lazy or, whatever belief is held around our projectors? Because it makes me very sad being the mother of a projector.
So much of what we've had with the manifestor, and I am technically an ego manifestor. I have 1/8 channel and I also have 2551. So I am an ego manifestor with only invitation channels. So strategy and authority, was my whole answer. I see people all the time in human design fighting about, which way it is, which way is that. It's no way for everyone. It is unique for everyone. And that's why strategy and authority is the answer, because no one can read you what your strategy and authority is going to say to that experience that comes in. It's all about you in that. And I think so much of the manifestor being connected to the transits the way they were here to receive information from life, direct people with information that was received. And that was them being everybody's authority because they were the ones moving the program. And so that's all fine and good. But if we, as 9 center beings, are becoming conscious, maybe we get this little stretch of life where we're a little bit more free and we can be our own authority and we can be different and creative and unique. And regardless of, what life looks like, whether it's a fallout or whether we're building something new, all of what I just said can remain true. And if we're letting go of the manifestor and we're taking on the projector, the big difference to me is that the projector drills into you. So finally, do we get to the place in life where it's about you and where that generator gets to sit down with the projector and finally feel seen and feel heard and feel like they're not being told what to do, but they're being asked the right questions in order to access the resources that are inside their self, you know? So it's a much gentler process that is so much more concerned with the human being and not what the human being needs to do, needs to think, needs to say, needs to act like, you know? And so I think it could be a much more intimate and beautiful time. It's just so hard because I'm telling you, projectors come to me in such terrible conditions, you know, like, and I was the same way. And it's like we show up and we're addicted. And if we have a completely open center, a lot of times we've been like institutionalized, or we've done some stint with mental health or even the legal system. And so by the time a projector becomes an adult and they're trying to live their life on their own, they've left their home environment for college environment and left college environment for new, you know, like they have exposed their aura to so many more things, so many more confusing ideas. It just seems like it's so hard because they're trying to be what they aren't. And I see it so heavily in personal development industry everywhere. It's like I can sit and have a whole conversation about what I recognize in the other, and people are just like, why are you so focused? You need to focus on you. You need to think. And it's like, but if we're not all the same, like we have to allow us to do the function. If I'm here to focus on you, then just let that happen to help yourself, you know, to help me. So I think it is about coming together, working together, being with each other. And maybe we're going to see that we've never really been together up until the possibility that could be occurring right now.
You begin to wonder if that isn't the way it has been. Like we thought we'd been working together. We thought we were like this collective doing everything for the tribe. But what if it has just been about conditioning of the other? And that's why we have become a traumatized society, you know, and projectors learning through the other. They're so, I mean, projectors' auras are so beautiful. I mean, really, when you think about it. And they get this ability to like see from a different perspective that I myself as a generator, I don't get, you know, I am here for me. I'm supposed to do me, you know, learn for me. And this projector is here to, you know, learn the other so that they can learn about themselves.
Yeah.
And so if we really put that into perspective and we start to allow all the people that surround us in our daily life and allow those projectors to view the world the way they're meant to view the world, and let that be perfect instead of you're doing it wrong.
Right.
And that's really, I hope that through this shift, that is a thing, you know, that allowance can bring us. If people can get to that, allowing everyone, there's such magic in that.
You know, it's interesting because it's like the way I see it is that someone starts strategy and authority, they think they're following strategy. Sometime later, they have crisis and then they really find strategy. Then they get to access the feeling of the open centers. Okay. So at that point in time, they're discovering what they're not on the inside. And to do that, they have to allow it in here and they have to allow it in the other. Right. And so like, learning how to allow another person. Then if you're lucky, you get to start feeling your definition, right? As it turns back on or as it comes back to life or starts to be louder, and anything, you know, any conditioning that's living in there can start to come out. I see that as a process of allowing yourself, learning how to allow yourself. And once that's done, once you know how to allow yourself, like there is no social situation that can't be okay to me. Like there's really nothing to be afraid of. You know, you are your authority and you have the power to feel what's happening and see what's happening and to respond to what's happening. And above everything in my freaking life, I would love for every human being on this planet to get there. But if they don't, the ones who have gotten there, will be allowing themselves, will be working with life, will be being guided by life, you know, with the right people. And the ones who have not learned to allow will not know what to do. They will still be looking for an authority from the cross of planning, and there won't be any left. And so even if they don't learn how to allow, the fact that they won't be able to be their own authority is what could possibly stop them from controlling the people who are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it could be so much more choiceless than what we're thinking of, everybody getting on board and doing thing, you know, like, I don't know who all gets this opportunity. I'm grateful that I have, and I want to give it to as many people as possible, but I've so clearly seen that it cannot be given. It comes through the cyclical abstract experience, right? And so we have to just trust gate 42 to bring those experiences. And then once they've been had, once they make that meaning, right, then there's people like us here to help them and support them in their process.
And move them through to the beginning.
Yes. Yes. So what do you think? You want to wrap up here?
I think that's a really good place to wrap up our thoughts on 42 and what meaning it's had, you know, for the both of us.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. And we will be back soon with more fun topics from the world of Internal Astronaut and Lacey and Jennifer. Have a great night, guys.